I got there 5 minutes early. That's the kind of person I am, always on time, or at least trying to be. I parked across the street from the restaurant, paused to fix my hair in the rearview mirror, then walked across the gravel lot in heels that hadn't touched pavement in weeks. The place was all string lights and white rock walls, Texan charm wrapped in money, Loretta's favorite. Inside, I was greeted with a sugar-sweet, "Welcome, ma'am," and a quick glance down at the clipboard. I didn't bother giving my name. I knew what this was. They were all already there. Loretta's laugh echoed before I even saw her. She was standing at the head of a long table, arm in arm with Harlan, her second husband, the shinier one. People circled them like moths to a flame. Claire leaned in close to whisper something, and Loretta tossed her head back like she hadn't a care in the world. That toss. She'd been doing it since she was 15 and realized it got her attention. I stepped closer, but no one turned, no wave. Just a pause from a cousin I hadn't seen since Daddy's funeral who looked up, blinked, and said, "Oh, you made it." I smiled like I didn't hear the undertone. "Wouldn't miss it." A hostess approached. "You're with the Haverford party?" I nodded. She led me toward the table, then past it. "Here you are," she said, gesturing to a two-top near the hallway where the restroom signs flickered with weak LED light. There was a chair, a small one. My name scribbled on a place card, missing an E. Tina with one N. Like a typo. Like a shrug. I looked at her, then back at the table. There were empty seats still open. A space beside Aunt Lillian, another beside my brother-in-law's assistant. Before I could speak, a cousin slid past me with a gentle hand on my arm. "It's quieter over here anyway," she whispered, like she was doing me a favor. I wanted to tell her I didn't ask for one. I sat. The smell from the restrooms wafted in and out. Every few seconds, a hand would push open the door behind me, paper towels crinkling, water dripping, someone on the phone whispering, "Yeah, we just sat down." Loretta looked over once. Her eyes met mine for a second, then she turned back to her wine glass. A server passed by and glanced at me. "Ma'am, are you with the staff?" "No," I said calmly. "I'm family." He blinked. "Sorry, miss, it's just, yeah. Sorry." I smiled. Small. Enough to make him walk away. Not enough to pretend it didn't sting. I saw my mother then, Velma Jo, sitting in her seat at the main table, wrapped in blue silk, fanning herself with a napkin. I waved lightly. She nodded back. That was all. It pulled a memory out of nowhere. Second grade, school recital. Everyone else's parents had flowers. Mine had errands. I told myself it was fine then. I told myself the same thing now. My phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up, expecting a spam text or maybe a calendar alert. It was an email. Forwarded, from Harlan. Subject, "Tonight, let's keep it clean." It had been meant for Loretta and Claire, but somehow, it had come to me. I read the first few lines. "Let's not let it get messy. She'll understand once she sees the seat. It's time." Time for what? The breath left me slow. I didn't move, just tilted my screen down and placed it back on the table like nothing had happened. I didn't confront anyone. Not yet, not there. Loretta lifted her glass to toast, to family, and to old stories worth retelling. And everyone laughed like it meant something. I watched from the side, half listening, half calculating. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe they didn't mean anything by the seat, or the email, or the way Claire hadn't looked me in the eye all night. Or maybe I wasn't imagining anything. I remembered covering Loretta's mortgage the year she divorced Sam. Remembered paying the retainer for Claire's custody hearing, quietly. No thanks expected, none given. My chest tightened, not with sadness, but recognition. They weren't trying to hurt me, not directly, but they didn't see me, not really. I was the one who made things easier, the one who didn't ask. A server brought a tray past me and paused. He placed a dish down in front of me. "Staff meal," he said. I looked at the plate, then at him. "I'm family," I said again, quieter this time. He raised an eyebrow. "You're Loretta's sister?" I didn't answer. Instead, I stood up. I didn't know where I was going yet, but I knew I wasn't going to sit by the toilet all night. I didn't go far when I stood up. I walked toward the main table, not rushing, not timid, just moving with the kind of calm that made people notice, even if they pretended not to. Loretta looked up first, eyes narrowing like she couldn't quite place me in that moment. Then she smiled, tight, performative. "Everything okay, Tina?" "I'd like to sit at the table." I said it plainly, no edge, no sugar. Just like I was asking for water. Roxine didn't miss a beat. She tilted her head. "Well, there's no extra chair, honey. We didn't think you'd, stay." I nodded once, signaling to a server behind me. "Could you bring over another chair, please?" He returned in seconds. I slid it in beside a cousin I hadn't spoken to since Mom's birthday last year. She shifted slightly, but didn't protest. I sat, right there at the main table. Harlan cleared his throat. He stood, wine glass in hand, tapping it gently with a fork. The clinking bounced around the room, catching attention. Everyone stopped mid-bite, mid-laugh, and turned toward him like it was church. "Tonight," he said, smiling big, eyes sweeping the room, "we celebrate Loretta, the love of my life, the anchor of this family." Loretta leaned her head onto his shoulder, a rehearsed move she'd perfected over the years. "But we also celebrate something else, change," Harlan continued, setting his glass down for dramatic effect. Claire turned slightly in her chair. Subtle, but noticeable. "I've decided," Harlan went on, "to stop living a lie." No one breathed. "I'm with Claire now," he said. Just like that. Someone dropped a fork. Loretta let out a strange little laugh, half gasp, half denial. Claire didn't speak. She just reached for her wine glass and sipped. "And frankly," Harlan added, eyes locking onto mine across the table, "some people need to stop clinging to the past. It's pathetic." I didn't blink. He didn't say my name, but everyone at that table heard it anyway. A slow, sharp heat crawled up my spine, but I kept still. Velma Jo looked down at her plate like the pattern on the china suddenly interested her more than her own daughter's public gutting. No one said a word in my defense. Not one. I heard my father's voice in my head, steady as ever. "Don't flinch while they're clapping. Let them talk. Wait for silence." So I did. I looked right at Harlan. And I didn't look away. He shifted, not much, but enough. My phone buzzed again in my lap. I reached down slowly, almost grateful for the distraction. But that's when I saw it. Claire's wrist. She was reaching for bread, and the sleeve of her silk blouse lifted just enough to show the bracelet. Gold, thick, with a slight notch near the clasp. I knew it instantly. Daddy had it made for me when I graduated college. I loaned it to Loretta once, for an event she couldn't wear fake jewelry to, and never got it back. And now, here it was. On Claire. I didn't react. I just lowered my phone beneath the table and took a picture. Not for Instagram, not for evidence in that moment. For me. For later. I let that bracelet remind me, this wasn't just about tonight. They'd been planning this, coordinating it, long before I arrived, long before the seat by the door. I lifted my glass slowly, let the pause stretch long enough for everyone to notice. "To seeing people's true selves," I said. A few people laughed nervously. Claire's smile faltered. Harlan's jaw clenched. Loretta sat frozen. I didn't say another word. I turned slightly to the server who'd brought my chair. "Thank you," I said, calm as tea on a porch swing. Then I stood again and walked toward the patio doors. Outside, the air was cooler than I expected. I pulled out my phone and dialed. 1 ring, 2. A voice picked up on the other end. "Hi," I said. "Yes, it's Tina Ridge. I'd like to discuss company shares." That was the moment dinner actually began. I didn't turn on any lights when I walked into my apartment. I let the dark settle around me, as if the shadows themselves were steadier company than anyone at that dinner. I set my keys on the table, placed my purse beside them, and stood there for a moment, listening to the rain tapping the window. My breathing felt unfamiliar, too shallow, too rehearsed. It was the breath you take when you're trying not to feel. I slipped off my shoes slowly and walked to the mirror at the end of the hallway. The makeup was still holding, but I could see the cracks, where my smile used to live, now gone. I thought briefly about calling Loretta, about saying, "What was that?" But then I remembered, she had watched it happen. She'd chosen not to speak. Silence is never neutral. It's permission. I washed my face, watching the mascara streak down the sink, like proof of how long I'd been pretending everything was fine. I wrapped myself in an old robe and sat at the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. It buzzed with unanswered messages, not from family, but from people who'd heard whispers already. News moves fast when humiliation is involved. I plugged it in, and that's when it happened. A voice. From nowhere. At first it was muffled, static, forks, chatter. I froze. My hands went still. My phone, sitting on the nightstand, had begun playing a recording, one I hadn't made on purpose. I picked it up, pressed it to my ear. "She'll lose it when she finds out the shares are gone." That was Claire. Another voice, Loretta, soft, measured. Dad just put her name on paper to shut her up. She always thought she mattered. Harlan laughed. "She won't show her face again after tonight. That's the point." I stopped it there. My whole body went still. There are moments in life when something inside you dies. Not hope, not love, but tolerance. And once it's gone, nothing grows in its place. I hit play again. They had waited until I stepped away from the table. They thought I was gone. They whispered freely, believing the air wouldn't remember their words. "She never knew where she stood." "That's what makes it sad," Claire said. Loretta breathed. "She'll thank us one day. It's for her own good." I paused it once more, this time to write the lines down. Not because I needed reminders, but because I needed proof. Proof I wasn't insane, proof I hadn't imagined the contempt. I walked to the filing cabinet I hadn't opened in years, the one that held everything of Dad's. Letters, contracts, documents he had signed with shaking hands before he died. I knew exactly what I was looking for. I pulled out the share certificate, my name, written in his hand. Not symbolic, not ceremonial, legal, binding. They hadn't just belittled me, they had erased me. I laid everything out on the table, phone, paper, pen. I played the audio again, just to feel the truth burn off any remaining loyalty. I thought about all the years I showed up for birthdays, for crises, for their failures. All the times I wired money without explanation just to keep their households intact. And not once did I ask for acknowledgement. But tonight, they made one mistake. They dragged my name out in public, and they thought I would disappear. I forwarded the audio to Gideon, the lawyer I trusted more than any relative. My message was short. Need advice on potential fraud and defamation. This is only the beginning. Then I opened the drawer and pulled out something I hadn't touched since the funeral. A small USB labeled in my father's handwriting. Tea. Legacy notes. I made tea the way he used to, simple, no sugar. I sat at the kitchen table, plugged in the drive, and pressed play. His voice filled the room. "If you're hearing this, it means you're finally ready to stop being polite." I closed my eyes. Something inside me, quiet for years, stood up. Power doesn't roar. Sometimes it whispers. I looked at my reflection in the black window. No tears, no shaking, just focus. "Game on," I said. I didn't sleep. I just lay there, listening to the storm quiet down outside, while the storm inside kept growing. That recording kept looping in my mind. Claire's smug whisper, Loretta's callous confession, Harlan's cruel little laugh. Every word was a nail driven into a truth I had ignored too long. At 2:11 a.m., I picked up the phone and called Wendell Price. He answered on the second ring, voice groggy but steady. "Tana? You all right?" "I need help," I said. "And I need it now." He was quiet a moment. Then, calm as always, he asked, "Do you truly own your shares?" I swallowed. That question, it hit something deeper than I expected. "I have the original paperwork, Dad's signature, my name. They've been pretending I don't exist." Wendell cleared his throat. "Meet me tomorrow, 8 sharp." I didn't bother trying to sleep after that. By morning, I was parked in front of Wendell's downtown office, watching people walk by with coffees and briefcases like the world hadn't just cracked wide open. Inside, the receptionist waved me straight through. Wendell looked older than I remembered, more gray in the beard, more weight in his eyes. He motioned for me to sit and handed me a stack of corporate documents. Found these in the archived files. Original charter, shareholder register. See this? He pointed to a line underlined in pencil. Your name was present in the first 3 years, then suddenly removed from all internal memos. I flipped through, stunned. Who authorized that? He gave me a look. That's what we're going to find out. I told him everything. The dinner, the bracelet, the email, the recording. He nodded slowly. This isn't just personal, Tina. If they acted on fraudulent grounds, this could be criminal. I knew it. I'd known it deep down for years. I just never had the courage to say it aloud. He leaned back. You need to understand something. Going forward with this, there's no turning back. You'll burn bridges that won't be rebuilt. I didn't hesitate. They've already lit the match. I'm just walking through the smoke. We drove together to the firm's headquarters. Apparently, Loretta and Harlan had called for a family leadership meeting with the staff, some farce about restructuring roles and future planning. Wendell said I should be there. I wasn't ready, but I went anyway. The boardroom was filled with familiar faces, some tight-lipped, some confused. Loretta sat at the head. Harlan was by the window. Claire, arms folded, leaning back like she was queen of nothing. Wendell didn't wait for introductions. As legal counsel for Ms. Ridge, he said calmly, I have a question before this meeting continues. Who currently holds majority shareholder rights? The air shifted. Loretta blinked too fast. That's already been resolved internally. Harlan scoffed. This is inappropriate. Wendell raised an eyebrow. It's either fact or fiction. Which is it? I stepped forward, pulling out the papers I'd kept safe for years. I laid them on the table, slow and deliberate. I do, I said. These prove it. Silence. Absolute. A low murmur from the staff. Then I heard it. Mr. Rivera, one of the senior analysts, leaned toward Claire and whispered, not quietly enough. So she's not just the sister. They did give her shares once. Claire's posture stiffened. Loretta's lips twitched but didn't move. I caught Rivera's eye, didn't smile, didn't thank him, just held the moment, because I didn't need permission anymore. Wendell gathered the papers and looked at me. We walked out together and headed back to his office. I knew what he was going to ask, public or private. He laid out the options. File a quiet complaint internally. Or go full exposure, press, legal filings, shareholder alerts. Either path was war. I'll lose what's left of my family, I said softly. Wendell looked at me. Maybe. Or maybe you'll just see who they really were all along. Before I left, he handed me a small sealed envelope. For security, he said. Don't open it unless I tell you to. I walked out into the sunlight, hands trembling, but steps firm. This wasn't just about shares. It was about truth. And tomorrow night, at that dinner, they wouldn't see me coming. I turned back to Wendell before closing the door. My voice didn't waver. Tomorrow's dinner will be the last time they ever dare to erase me. Claire's text came in at 7:48 a.m. Coffee, just us, 10 a.m., brew bloom. No greeting, no question mark, just a command in disguise. I stared at it for a while, wondering if I should respond at all, but I knew better. People like Claire didn't send invites for reconciliation, they staged performances. And today, I had a front row seat. I showed up 5 minutes early, parked a block away on purpose, walked slowly, controlled breath, neutral tones, no perfume, just a plain watch, plain blouse, and a steel jaw. No jewelry except my wedding band, still on, though it hadn't meant anything in years. She was already there. Corner booth, almond milk latte, half sipped, designer scarf folded just so. Theatrical as always. I didn't smile. She did. You're early. That's new. I'm not here to impress you. Claire sipped, unbothered. You're making a lot of noise, Tina. That kind of noise. It ripples, family, business, it all gets dragged. I let her talk. She danced around the point, shareholders, perception, optics, as she put it. She dropped the phrase, women who get emotional, like she was doing me a favor. I tilted my head. You mean women who won't be quiet? Her smile didn't budge. We're giving you one last chance. Walk away. Dignity intact. Be the mature one. I waited. Or, she leaned in, voice syrupy and sharp. Or everything gets messy, and not just for you. There it was, the warning, wrapped in a ribbon, poisoned all the same. She kept going, hinting Loretta's health wasn't what it used to be, that any public scandal could tip the balance. Then she dropped Dad's name like a shield. He built this legacy, Tina. Do you want to be the one to tarnish it? Over paperwork? That stung, but not like it used to. I looked her dead in the eye. This isn't about protecting Dad's legacy. It's about controlling the story. You want to pick how I lose. Claire exhaled slowly. We're giving you more grace than you've earned. I smiled, just a flicker. I've been writing down every word since I sat down. Her cup stopped midair. I know about the bracelet, I added. The whispers, the memo edits. Her mask slipped for a fraction, but she snapped it back quick. Empty threats won't save you. They're not threats, I said quietly. They're truths. And truth has legs. I stood, picked up my bag, didn't glance back. She called after me. If you take this public, you'll regret it. I didn't turn around. If I stay silent, I already do. Walking to the car, I felt it. Not fear, not yet. Focus, the kind that settles in your spine, the kind that doesn't shake. I opened my phone. Wendell's email was there. Initial timeline, filing options. Subject line clean, no fluff. Then I opened my voice recorder. Log, I whispered. Claire coffee threat, time-stamped. Saved. My mother once told me, they only tell you to hush when your voice is starting to matter. And right now, mine was loud enough to rattle her crystal cup. I pulled out of the parking lot, checked the mirror, breathed. My phone buzzed. Unknown number, one message. You really want to do this? Think of your niece. I stared at the screen, line in the sand. They just drew blood. That message about my niece, it hit different. Didn't scream, didn't curse, but it cut like a knife. You don't mention a child in a power play unless you've crossed the line and plan to stay there. I called Loretta. I didn't tell her about the message, just asked how my niece was doing. Her voice was light, too light. She said everything was fine. Said Claire told her I was just stirring up old dust. Loretta didn't even ask how I was. She ended the call with, Family survives storms, Tina. Don't be the lightning. I started writing, dates, names, quotes, even tones of voice. Linda, God bless her, dropped by that afternoon, retired legal secretary. She's seen some things. Brought 2 accordion folders, her own printer, and a pot of chili, said, You're gonna need fuel and facts. We labeled everything. Timeline, emails, audio logs. A binder called Claire and another one marked Intent. On the front page of my journal, I wrote in thick black ink, The best revenge is to be undeniable. That evening, I got an email. No subject, no name, just a link. It took me to Reddit, some community gossip thread. Title in bold. She stole from her own sister's fundraiser. There were screenshots, pictures from years ago, twisted and taken out of context, doctored bank records. My face beside captions like grifter in pearls and fake philanthropist. One comment read, Does her job know? Another said, I'm calling KXAN tomorrow. For half a second, I forgot how to breathe. Then I hit record, read each line out loud. Calm, steady, no rage, not yet, just facts, with timestamps. They wouldn't get to control the narrative anymore, not if I documented everything. I called Wendell. He'd already seen it. We file now, he said, no small talk. Cease and desist, defamation, maybe injunction. They're scared, but now it's escalated. I asked, what if they drag my niece into this? He paused, then said, Then we drag in the truth. I gave him the green light. It wasn't about being polite anymore. The gloves came off. The next day, I attended a small fundraiser at the Barton Creek Community Center, just a local food drive, trying to act normal, breathe normal, but people stared longer than usual. That's when she walked up. Young woman, early 30s, business casual, polite smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're Tina, right?" I nodded. "My name's Shayla. I used to do at work for Claire, off the books." I didn't blink. She leaned in just enough to make it private, not enough to seem shady. "She's been planning this for months. I have proof. She saved stuff to the wrong cloud folder." She handed me a USB drive. "I emailed your lawyer already. Thought you should have this too." I didn't say thank you. I just nodded. That night, I sent everything to Wendell. He replied within minutes. One word. Gold. The next morning, I set a meeting with Loretta. No more sidestepping. I rehearsed my lines. "You don't have to pick a side, but you will hear the truth. All of it. Claire's got flash. I've got facts. And facts don't flinch. If needed, I'll go to the press. I'll go to HR. I'll go to the damn shareholders." Silence served them, never me. Later that night, I went to the driveway to grab something from the trunk. That's when I saw it. The passenger side of my car, keyed so deep it curled the paint. One word. Thief. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I took a photo, not for insurance, for evidence. They thought this was a family feud. They didn't know it was war. I showed up 20 minutes early, didn't park out back. I wanted them to see me step out, head high, walking in through the front like I never left. The receptionist smiled nervously. I didn't return it. This wasn't a morning for pleasantries. Upstairs, the boardroom door was cracked open. I pushed it gently. Loretta, Harlan, a few staff, already seated. Gus Tremblay stood near the whiteboard, arms crossed. Velma Jo sat beside him, stone-faced, purse on her lap like she didn't plan to stay long. As I walked in, voices hushed. One assistant stopped mid-whisper and straightened. I pulled out a chair, placed my folder gently on the table, and looked around. No words, just presence. This wasn't about volume. It was about weight. Loretta launched in, same as always, warm, polished, hollow, talking about quarterly reports, exciting initiatives, and the importance of maintaining unity during transition. Not a flicker of acknowledgement about the elephant pacing the room. When she said the words, "our shared legacy," I stood up. "No offense, Loretta, but maybe we skip the poem and get to the point." The room froze. Harlan scratched his neck. Gus's mouth curved, half approval, half challenge. Loretta blinked like I'd just walked in from another planet. "Tina, this is still a business meeting." "And I'm still part of the business, aren't I?" Gus cleared his throat, the kind of pause that silences everything else. "Actually," he said, looking at the room, "before we go any further, I've been asked to make something clear for the record." Everyone turned. He continued, calm but loud enough to cut through every cough and fidget. "As of this morning, with verified documentation and archived legal review, Miss Tina Ridge is confirmed as the rightful holder of controlling shares in Ridge Co. You could feel the air shift, like someone cracked a window mid-winter, quiet but sharp. Loretta didn't speak. Her jaw tightened. Harlan's eyebrows pulled together. I saw him mouth something under his breath. I didn't smile, didn't gloat, just nodded once. "Thank you, Gus," I said, even. "Now let's talk about next steps with full transparency." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was recalculating. And then, nothing. No outburst, no apology, just Velma Jo. She sat still, fingers clasped in her lap. Didn't look at me. Didn't even blink. That stung more than any threat they'd thrown. She wasn't angry. She was distant, like someone watching a movie she wasn't invested in anymore. That silence, it said everything. "You might be right," her eyes told me, "but I'm not cheering for you yet." Loretta finally broke the stillness. "So we're playing politics now?" Her tone was sugary, but the edges were steel. Harlan added, "Guess we'll be reopening files then, especially Southern Division. See what Tina's really been managing." I didn't flinch. "Be my guest. But while you're at it, we'll open every project, every memo, every dollar. Let's clear it all up, for the record. Gus nodded. If that's what's needed, he said. Full audit. Everyone's accountable now. Staff eyes darted. Some avoided me. A few didn't. One woman, Jules from marketing, straightened her notepad like she just picked a side. Meeting wrapped not long after. People shuffled out quickly, voices low, glances sideways. As I gathered my things, Gus stepped toward me. He handed me a thick envelope. Dad's original will, he said, voice low. And the first share agreement, not copies, originals. I held it with both hands. Did Claire ever see these? He didn't answer, just looked at me for a beat, then turned and walked out. I stood alone in the room, fingers pressed against the paper. I wasn't shaking, but my heart, it wasn't still either. Tonight, I'd open this. Tonight, I'd learn exactly what my father left behind. The moment I stepped out of the car, the flashbulbs started. They didn't know what to do with me. Half of them weren't expecting me at all. The other half weren't sure if I was guest or ghost. I wore navy, sharp lines, no glitter, no drama. Just clarity. Every step toward that venue door felt like a drumbeat, deliberate, grounded. I passed through clusters of guests sipping champagne, Loretta's high society crowd whispering behind their flutes. Claire stood at the entrance, shaking hands, camera ready, teeth gleaming. I didn't slow down. One of the event staff stepped in, leaned close, and motioned me forward. This way, Ms. Ridge. I followed him up front, center table. Harlan spotted me. Tight smile. Not surprised, just bracing. I took my seat, straight back, one deep breath. I wasn't here to blend in. I was here to be seen. Dinner service began with the lights dimming, soft piano, servers moving like clockwork. Then, screens lit up. Legacy Leadership, the title read in gold script. The slideshow started with black and white photos, founders, ribbon cuttings, charity events. Then came the family. Loretta, Claire, Harlan, again, and again. I waited for the shot I knew should have been there, me standing beside Dad at the groundbreaking of the Dallas site. It came, but I was gone, cropped clean out. Gasps rippled through the tables. A few guests turned their heads. Whispers. One woman across the table muttered, "That's not the original photo." Claire clapped once, deliberately. Loretta avoided my eyes. Harlan stared down at his plate like it might explain something. I didn't move. They'd made their last attempt to bury me in front of everyone. A final performance, a rewritten history, and I let them think it worked. Until Gus stepped on stage, the lights shifted, the clapping died down. He looked across the room, calm as ever. "We've celebrated a lot tonight," he began. "But before we move on, there's someone else we should hear from." He paused, then looked directly at me. "Tina Ridge, if you would." All heads turned. I stood. The sound of my chair scraping the floor felt louder than the applause Claire tried to fake. I walked to the stage, calm, even. The spotlight burned hot. I didn't flinch. "This slideshow," I began, "was beautifully edited, almost convincing." A few chuckles, a few tense shoulders. "I wasn't just cropped out of photographs tonight. I've been erased from conversations, credits, decisions, and legacy." I placed the folder on the podium. These are originals, my father's will, the shareholder agreements, email threads from Gus and legal. Signed, stamped, dated. I held up one page. For the record, I hold controlling shares in Ridgeco. I didn't inherit a favor, I inherited a fact. Murmurs turned to motion. Phones lifted. Reporters zoomed in. "You don't get to rewrite history just because you control the microphone, but I have my own mic now." Claire shifted uncomfortably. Loretta stared hard. Harlan stood up. "Sit down," I said, voice firm. He froze. I looked him dead in the eye. "You called me sentimental dead weight in a meeting you thought I'd never hear about. You said I'd be forgotten. Tonight I remind you, I'm unforgettable." Claire's jaw locked. Loretta blinked hard. Velma Jo, front row, center, just stared, eyes wet, lips tight, no words, but she didn't look away. I took one final breath. "I am not your PR problem. I am this company's rightful legacy." With that, I stepped back. Cameras burst. Reporters surged forward. Dana, a word for the press? Can you confirm the share percentage? Was this retaliation? I gave short answers. Clear. No venom, no apologies, just truth. Back home that night, I dropped my clutch on the kitchen counter. Sat down. My phone lit up like a siren. News alerts, texts, voicemails. One headline looped through every major outlet. She owns the company. I stared at one text longer than the rest. No name, just 3 words. Welcome, CEO. The morning after the gala, I woke before the sun. No alarm, no noise, just stillness. I pulled on my old hiking shoes, mud still dried at the edges, and drove out to that familiar trail, the one Dad used to take me to when things got heavy. The trailhead hadn't changed much, same pine scent in the air, same wooden sign creaking a bit in the wind. I walked slow. Every step felt like shedding a layer. The spotlight, the boardroom, the silence from Mom, the betrayals. They weren't gone, but they weren't driving me anymore. My breath matched the rhythm of my pace, steadier than it had been in weeks. I thought about Harlan calling me pathetic. That used to sting like salt on an open cut. But today, it barely echoed. When they go low, you go high, I whispered, not to anyone, just to the trees. At the summit, I stood still, didn't take a selfie, didn't call anyone, just looked out. The view wasn't dramatic, no sunrise painting the sky gold, but it was wide open, quiet. And enough. Back at the office later that morning, I walked through the front doors differently. People stopped and looked, not in pity, not in tension, just acknowledgement. Genuine handshakes, straight eyes. Claire's nameplate was gone. Loretta's office cleaned out. Harlan's name appeared under a different division. Consulting liaison, whatever that meant. On my desk sat a small package. Inside was a wooden plaque. Etched into it, Tina Ridge, resilient leader. Velma Jo's handwriting on the card. Earned. I placed it on the corner of the desk, not centered, not polished, but just right. I didn't feel like a victor. I felt aligned. I called a board meeting that afternoon, not because I had to, but because it was time. Let's reset, I told them. We won't run this company on shame or silence anymore. We lead forward, visible, accountable, and damn sure united. Some nodded. A few apologized. One man leaned in and said, "You're nothing like your sister." I smiled. Exactly. A new 6-month strategy took shape that day, focused on people, not spin, culture repair, transparency training, public audits. A week later, I received a letter in the mail, handwritten. It was from a client we'd lost during Claire's smear campaign. He wrote, "I believed the wrong people. I was wrong. We want back in, if you'll have us." I folded the letter neatly and placed it beside the plaque. That same evening, I removed the portrait wall. You know the one. Stale suits, stiff smiles. I replaced it with a mural. Every employee's photo, side by side, all equal size. No one cropped. When I got home, I noticed a voicemail on my phone. It was from Mom. "Hey, I saw your speech. And your face. You looked like your father. He'd be proud. I'm proud." That last part, "I'm proud," hung in the air. I didn't call her back to explain or untangle years of distance. I just called. We didn't say much, just sat on the line, breathing. I've come to love silence, not as punishment, but as space, the kind that holds peace. That night, I brewed my coffee the right way, sat in my chair, opened a book I'd kept untouched for years. No proving, no defending, just being. The next morning, I recorded a video message for our internal newsletter. I looked right into the camera. "I'm not the woman who was broken. I'm the one who rebuilt." We uploaded it to LinkedIn. By noon, the comments flooded in. "You spoke for us." Finally, someone said it. "Thank you." I realized then, This wasn't just about one family, one company, or one name. It was about people watching closely, quietly, waiting for a sign that you can fall, rise, and still be whole. I no longer needed everyone to clap. I just needed to know I stood tall on my own. Late that evening, a text came in. No name. Just, "We saw what you did. We have a project for you." I stared at the screen, then smiled. Some doors close not to trap you, but to lead you to one you'll build yourself.